it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. Jimmy Murphy, Pierre McGuire, and we've got a little sound feedback there, Pierre. On your end?
I don't think so, Jimmy. I hope it's not.
All right. Well, hopefully it's not going away. We will figure it out.
Before you get going, I just want to say congratulations to Rob Ray in Buffalo. He's going to be inducted into the Buffalo Sabres Hall of Fame on January 31st. They play the Nashville Predators that night. You talk about a guy that bled for an organization, that had passion for an organization, that did everything he was asked by the organization, and a guy that's done, I think, a valiant job as a broadcast man for a team that hasn't been a playoff team. He makes their shows exciting. I watched their game last night with Florida. Obviously not the result they wanted, but nonetheless, you think about it, Rob's been there for a long time, and he deserves a lot of credit. So I'm really happy to see that he's being honored with that. And I just wanted to say, hey, from all of us here at the Eye Test, way to go, Razor.
Way to go, Razor. Rob Ray, we spoke about it with Marty Baron last week, what he means to that franchise. So congratulations to him. Another, legend with his team in his city that's been with the team for a long time is joining us here today on the Eye Test. That is Pittsburgh Penguins commentator and play-by-play man, Paul Steigerwald, joining us here on the Eye Test. And I want to give a thanks when we put that out that he was going to be on the show today. We got a nice retweet from Brian Brewster. His Twitter handle is BTAS-reunion. And he said, Pierre, if you're a hockey fan or even someone trying to get to know the intricacies of this beautiful sport, the Sick Podcast with Murphy's Law 74, that's me on Twitter, and Pierre is top notch. Well, thank you, Brian. We appreciate the compliment, and we appreciate all the support from everyone out there. And I think Pierre will agree with me that one of our favorite parts, if not the favorite part of the broadcast, is the Q&A we do with our listeners and viewers, and just the community that we have built there. So we're so in debt to all of you guys for all your support. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Brian. It really means a lot to us. We're proud of what we've built so far over, almost a year and a bit now. What is it, a year and 2 months, Jimmy? A year and a month and a half, whatever it is. And the people in Montreal that have produced this show, whether it's Shane or Anello or Sammy or Rosa, they've done fantastic work for us. But it's because of people like you that, care about the show that we continue to go on and continue to build it. We can't wait to get to Ireland. Thanks to everybody from the Friendship Four and Sarah Stanton and the people at Cara. But, Jimmy, I was just talking about Rob Ray. Tonight I'm so glad we have Paul on, Steigerwald.
Yes.
Yeah, I worked with him. I was coaching, he was broadcasting, but I can just tell you, when those days when you were a coach, you listened to the home broadcast and you listened to the away broadcast because that's how you broke down tapes. Mm-hmm. And Paul and Mike Lang were so good as a team. They were so good. And the passion Paul grew up as a Pittsburgh Penguin fan. He doesn't apologize to anybody. He's a Pittsburgh Penguin. He was so good. And he and Mike Lang were just an amazing tandem. They really were. And the fact that we have him on the day that it's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury's last game in Pittsburgh, barring the fact they may play in the Stanley Cup final, which I don't think will happen. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing to have Paul on today.
It is. And I can't wait to see the ovation that Fleury gets in Pittsburgh tonight. It's going to be something else, and obviously a lot to talk about with the Penguins. Not exactly all positive, so we'll try to stay focused on that. But we'll talk about some Fleury memories, and then we'll get into the Penguins today. But Pierre, before we bring Paul on, just some NHL topics around the league, and the big one right now out of Edmonton is Connor McDavid goes down with not looking like a good prognosis right now. He goes down with an awkward injury. What was it? Just 27 seconds into the game. And, you've heard various reports. It's all speculation right now. I heard some reporters speculating it might be a high ankle sprain, which is never good. But the bottom line is he was sent home and he has to get checked, and they're going to see what happens with him. And, Pierre, for a team that you and I have discussed as maybe being a little top heavy, or maybe not a little, a lot top heavy, this would be a huge injury, obviously, for the Edmonton Oilers. And I don't know if they have the depth to really succumb that for an extended period of time.
They don't have the goaltender or the defensive depth, too. I can tell you that. So if they're not scoring a bunch of goals, and how do you think Zach Hyman feels right now? dash, after a 50-goal year last year. And now he's lost his, top player that he plays with. They don't have a Vander Kane. There's another guy. Nobody's talking about not having a Vander Kane. Vander Kane was an important part of that team offensively last year. Here's what I'd say. I was watching that. Clearly, it's his left leg. I don't know if it's his ankle. I don't know if it's his, fibia. I don't know if it's his knee. I have no idea. But the ice was clean. It was not an infraction by Zach Werenski, who was trying to match speed with him. It was just an unfortunate thing. Hockey's a contact game, and he went down and careened into the boards. It was really unfortunate. But that changes a lot of things in the West if he's out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and Pierre, like you said, it was an innocuous type injury. It really wasn't something that was violent by any means or dirty or anything. It just was, you didn't even notice it, and then you kind of see he gets up and he kind of stopped for a bit and then he just beelines it over to the bench. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. Because you'll know in any sport, Pierre, usually when you see an injury where it's really not caused by the opponent or, the opposing player, so to speak, it's usually going to end up pretty bad because it's just something that gave up inside there. And so, we hope the best for Connor McDavid there, and we'll see what happens with that. On the other side of Canada, and we're closer to where you are, Pierre, about 45 minutes to an hour south in Montreal, they get some good news today. Yuri Slafkovsky re-enters the lineup. He'll be back in the lineup tonight when they play the Seattle Kraken. And Pierre, if he can stay healthy, we know that, they are a much better team with him in the lineup. And you look at this team now, as they start to get healthier, Marty St. Louis is starting to have more options and more versatility. And so if they go on here, how is Slafkovsky's return going to help the Habs, Pierre?
It's going to be interesting because I don't know. He's not going to play with the top line right now. You can know
Nope.
not Kirby Duck off that line. So he's going to play with Newhook and Armia to start, and he's going to play on the left side. Usually he's playing on the right side when he plays with Cole and with Suzuki. So that's going to be interesting to watch how that plays out. Number one. Number two, Montreal should be riding a bit high right now. 2 big wins on the weekend, one against St. Louis at home and a really nice win until the last 5 minutes or so against Philadelphia on Sunday night. So this is, and they got a heavy week. Seattle's coming in. Shane Wright, first time ever playing in Montreal, and he's going to want to stick.
I didn't even think of that, Pierre.
Not drafting him. So, yeah, that's a big deal, too. Shane Wright, number 51, coming into town in Montreal. Seattle needs to get going here. They're really inconsistent to start this year, Jimmy. I think everybody knows that, including their coaching staff and management team. And then you look at Montreal the rest of the week. It's not easy. You go into Washington on Thursday night, and then you go into Pittsburgh on Saturday night. And, for Montreal, they want to stay relevant. And the only way you can do it is just keep putting wins in the satchel. It's the only way they can do it.
That's a great point by you about Shane Wright, Pierre. I didn't even think of that. So good angle there to look at as the Seattle Kraken go into Montreal. Pierre, the other thing, too, I want to talk about, just staying with Montreal there and then extending it in general. Look, it was only a week ago, right? I mean, the heat was coming down on Marty St. Louis, and everybody's freaking out up in Montreal, and the roof's falling. Oh, my God, it's doom and gloom and blah, blah, blah. And now, look. So just, for everybody that lets their emotions swing so high and so low, just ride the wave. Ride the wave. That's all I can tell you. Enjoy the games. Don't let it control your emotions or your days or your nights. Enjoy it because it can change like that.
It's all part of it. The emotion of the fans is all part of it. The passion is all part of it. It's okay. Now, I didn't like the pot shots going to the coaching staff.
That's what I'm talking
about. And you're right about that. I didn't appreciate that at all. Look, I'm not an apologist for Marty St. Louis, and when I don't like something he's doing, I've said it on the show. Like I think they missed playing Mike Matheson on the power play, and they should be giving Lane Hudson more of those minutes. That's just my own personal opinion. It doesn't mean that I'm right either. I could be wrong on that. I know Mike had a power play weekend this weekend, especially on Saturday night against St. Louis. But the truth is that long term, when Mike is way down the road, Lane Hudson's running that power play. He is.
Exactly. Yep.
So, anyways, but when more times than not, I think Marty's done a lot of great things here. Cole Caulfield is Exhibit A. Slafkovsky is Exhibit B. Can't wait to see Caden Gooley back in the lineup. They've done a really good job with Caden Gooley. Lane Hudson, I know some people are looking at all those 2-4 games, all this. Come on. Give me a break.
It's a process. It's a learning process.
I had a long talk with Scotty about this with Phil Housley, because he was Phil Housley's coach as an 18-year-old playing in the old odd in Buffalo. And just to show you how young he was, Gilbert Perreault was still playing for Buffalo, and Phil Housley was 18 years old. And I said, Scotty, what did you do to break him in? He says, I let him make mistakes. Like, I knew how good he was. I let him make mistakes. We didn't beat him over the head with it. And Phil went on to have, obviously, a Hall of Fame career as a player. He was a phenomenal player. And he had some issues, when he played, that he had to battle through some serious demons. Mm-hmm. He found a way to do it. But boy, oh boy, like, everybody's just so quick to criticize Lane Hudson. Give him a break.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you, to me, I'd be going to the Housley Bowman School of how to break in a young defenseman.
There you go. Yep. Totally agree. And look, I'm just so Canadians fans aren't going to be like, oh, the guy from Boston criticizing us. I'm going to ready for what I'm going to say now. This applies to all you Bruins fans too, who are ready to have Jim Montgomery's head on a platter last week and wanted him out of town. It's early. Just be patient. Like we said, and many of our guests who work in the NHL that join us on this podcast so far this season have said, you got to at least look at the 15 to 20 game mark before you really start to make concrete judgments or assessments. Then you get a real feel for the team. So we're getting there, but we're not there yet. So for now, just ride it and see what happens. Take notes like Pierre and I do and look at the mistakes. Are they corrected as time goes on? That's how I look at it when I'm sitting here watching the games. And I know Pierre does the same. We take down notes and we look at trends, like Scotty Bowman told us. And you'll see that it's not probably as bad as you think. That sometimes it's just isolated incidents, and it will change. Everything changes as you go on. So enjoy the games. That's my word of advice. But I know one fan base, though, and I don't blame them, that it's been tough to enjoy Pierre, has been the Pittsburgh Penguins. And when we get Paul on here, I wonder if he can just sort of give us the temperature of the fan base there, because Pittsburgh well, Pierre. You coach there, you live there, you still have so many strong ties there. It's a Steelers town and a Penguins town. No offense to the Pirates right now, but they have not been relevant for a while. They really haven't turned the corner. So this team feeds off the Penguins and the Steelers. Hey, big win for the Steelers last night, so that's good. But this team means so much to that small city.
Huge. It's a gigantic part of the winter season there. I know they have Pitt basketball, men's and women's, Duquesne basketball, men's and women's, but truly the winter sports team in Pittsburgh are the Pittsburgh Penguins. There's no question about it. All I can tell you is this. The fans have been amazingly loyal there. They're a lot like Buffalo fans. Yes, they're more corporate dollars in Pittsburgh. Absolutely. I would cede you that. But there are also a lot of fans, and Paul will tell you, Steigerwald, a lot of fans that buy their own tickets there. They're not getting corporate handout tickets. They're buying their tickets. It's a very passionate city, and they've been spoiled. If you look at from 1984 to now, you've had a player like Mario Lemieux. You've had players like Ron Francis, Paul Coffey, Tom Barrasso, Larry Murphy, Kevin Stevens, Rick Tocchet. You've had a run to the Cup in 91, a run to the Cup in 92, a run to the Cup in 08, a run to the Cup in 09, a run to the Cup in 16, a run to the Cup in 17. I mean, Jimmy, these people have been blessed with a lot of unbelievable high-profile hockey players and high-profile moments in Stanley Cup lore. The most bizarre thing is they've got 5 Stanley Cups. Do you know how many they won at home?
1, right? Is it 1?
I don't think any.
No, wait.
No, they won in Nashville. They won in Detroit. We won in Chicago. We won in Minnesota. And they won in San Jose.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
I don't think they've won any of them.
That's a weird little stat there, huh?
Pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, that's weird.
So, yeah.
By the way, you brought up Kevin Stevens there. And speaking of the city of Pittsburgh, December 4th, let's mark that date, Pierre, because we'll have to get Kevin on either that day or the day before. He will be inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. So congratulations to our wonderful friend, Kevin Stevens. I know he listens a lot. Kev, we're thinking of you, and we want to have you on here soon to talk about this great honor. So we'll set that up.
I get him on the ice for one more practice, Jimmy.
I don't know if he wants that.
No, you know what? He was one of the guys. I tell you what, it was such a pleasure and an honor to work with all those players. But in particular, Kevin was always one of the first guys on, one of the last guys to leave, and he didn't mail in practice. I can tell you that. He would bring it. He would bring it. I loved working with him because he would bring it in practice.
Good stuff. Yeah, I can't wait. It was a pleasure to get to know him over the years too, because he would be scouting up in the press box there, and I'd get to know him that way. And then I met Mark Recchi through him as well. So Kev, we'll get you on soon down the line. Looking at that, Pierre, staying with Pittsburgh right now. We had this discussion. Was it yesterday or the day before, where we were just kind of talking about there's gonna come a point real soon where they gotta decide. I think it was yesterday. Are we in a rebuild? Are we in a retool? Are we going to just keep trying to retread here and hold on to the glory days? Like, it's just such, out of all the teams in the NHL, right? There's a lot of teams that are in that position where they always have to, they're kind of in that middle ground, but they, to me, seem to have the most danger of falling into purgatory, so to speak. And that's the Pittsburgh Penguins.
They could. The only good news is Crosby signed and he can still play, which is huge. Malkin, I don't know how much he has left. Letang and Carlson are obviously not getting any younger. So high-profile star players obviously are a bit of an issue. But, could they? Yeah, they don't have much in Wilkes-Barre right now. They were expecting, I think, and it's not fair to the kid at all. It's not. They were expecting, I think, Rutherford to make their team and be an everyday player there. And that's realized right now. And it's a big ask. It's a big ask for a kid to leave college and go play with Sidney Crosby or Geno Malkin. They're not. Most kids aren't ready for that. They're just not. Yeah, it's really difficult, and so that's been part of the issue there. But they haven't drafted well, and it's not so much in Kyle Dubas and Jason Spezza. They've only had, I think, 2 drafts that they've been involved with, but it's what went on before that, and they had a lot of swings and a lot of misses.
Yeah. And, I just look at it's tough because they really, like we said, to start things off, they're top heavy. They don't really have a lot coming right now, like you say, Pierre. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're getting Paul on here soon. He will be connecting with us soon. I just texted with him, so he will be joining us. Pierre, anything else around the league catch your eye last night?
Utah losing at home to San Jose. First win, congratulations to Ryan Warsofsky, the head coach in San Jose. I was watching that, and what's interesting, this is a good example of karma. They were joking around on the Utah broadcast, the announcers. They weren't really following the game. They were kind of joking around, and then all of a sudden, San Jose started winning faceoffs. And Alex Kerfoot lost a big faceoff. Kevin Stenlund lost 2 big faceoffs. All 3 of those lost faceoffs ended up in the back of the net. One of them was for an OT winner, and one of them was for a late tying goal. And so that's for Utah. Jimmy, you go get the tape and play it tomorrow. What did I say yesterday?
Say it.
All these teams that need to be proactive, the one team that desperately needs to be proactive because of injury, one to Sean Dursey and one to John Marino, the 2 defensemen, is Arizona. Yep. Go look at that defense on paper. Half the fans in the league wouldn't even know the names of the players. And, I know them because this is what I do, but I'm just telling you, they need They need to be proactive. They're not nearly good enough right now. And I will just tell you this. I give San Jose a lot of credit. Tyler Toffoli didn't quit on that game. Their D didn't quit on that game. Mackenzie Blackwell didn't quit on that game, and they were getting pumped. They were getting pumped in that game, and the crowd in Utah is awesome. The crowd in Salt Lake City is awesome. Good for those. But you know what? If they keep doing that stuff, and they've struggled here the last little while, Jimmy, those fans are going to start getting mad at them.
Yeah. Look, Pierre, I said it to you on the phone earlier today. There's a few teams out there, right, that have suffered some injuries. A lot of teams maybe that are younger, so to speak, that, like when I talked to Donnie Waddell, for example, last week for Columbus, and when they had those injuries right out of the gate, and he said to me, look, unless I'm getting a young kid with term, I'm not going out and wasting a 1st or 2nd round pick for some guy that's just going to be a rental, because we're just not in that position right now. Utah, however, is in a very unique position. Not only are they trying to push for a playoff spot and get back there for the first time in God knows how long, obviously being the Coyotes until now, but also, as we both agreed, they've got an owner who, look, I don't know if he's put some kind of mandate to make the playoffs, but he has made it very obvious and very clear to his management staff and his hockey ops staff that he wants to make the playoffs, that he's serious about winning here, and they need to, have a great first year here in Salt Lake City and really bring in the fan base. So it could be a unique situation there. And as you always like to say, you got to let the owners own, like you said to me on the phone, the managers manage, and the coaches coach. However, I would think that, Ryan Smith is going to talk to Bill Armstrong and say, if you can, I'm not telling you what to do, but if you can, we could use a defenseman right now. I don't want to fall too far behind, because right now we are a depleted blue line. And I agree with him if he's thinking this way. They do have a good chance to make it in the West in the playoffs, because the West is not as strong as it used to be. They could make it. So it's going to be interesting to see if maybe they're the first team to strike as we get closer to American Thanksgiving.
They might. Don't count out Edmonton now because of what's going on with McDavid. We'll see if that is, because expectation level in Edmonton is through the roof. Jimmy, I didn't buy into it. I'm going to go on the record. I told you that at the start of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's easy to run with the herd. I don't like to run with the herd. The herd was all on Edmonton's side. I don't agree. Too many holes in the back end, too many holes up front. I thought they made their team redundant when they made some of the moves they made this summer for scoring wingers that are undersized. So we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe I'm going to be wrong and they're going to look like geniuses. I don't know. But I wasn't buying on Edmonton to the final. I was not buying that.
Well, one guy that's always looked like a genius behind the mic is our good friend here joining us now on the eye test on the Sick Podcast Network, Paul Steigerwald. How are you, my friend?
Good. Am I passing the eye test?
You always pass the eye test there.
Oh, wait a second. I'm just going to say this right now. You are probably the most fit 70-year-old man I've ever seen.
I don't know about that. I got a little bit of extra rubber around the tire right now.
Can you imagine, Jimmy? Look at this guy. He's a specimen.
Unreal. I wouldn't have known if you said his age. If you didn't say his age, I wouldn't have known.
The only guy that watches more games than Paul Steigerwald is Scotty Bowman.
No, I don't know about that. I wish I could watch more, but I don't have the setup that Scotty had. A satellite dish in 1983, I think. He was the first guy to ever have one. I know that.
I think you're in that category too, Pierre. Don't shortchange yourself.
Yeah, well.
So, big night in Pittsburgh tonight. Paul, you've got the return of Marc-Andre Fleury, likely his last game ever there. What's the atmosphere like as you get ready for this game?
I think it's going to be a really special night, actually, because the fans really love Marc-Andre Fleury. Penguin fans, they don't miss a trick. They're very aware of what's going on, and they know how to kind of seize the moment. And I believe that they'll do that. I think it'll be an emotional moment when he's kind of introduced, and I don't know exactly how it'll be done, but I could see them just kind of spontaneously rising to their feet when they see that Fleury's getting ready to play before the game, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a kind of a pause even before they really drop the puck, just because the fans will kind of let their love pour out for Marc-Andre Fleury. They always had his back, when in toughest times. The Penguins fans always knew, the folks who sat in the end zone behind him when he was going through adversity, like say he'd been in a slump and things weren't going well and he was under criticism, they would spontaneously start cheering his name and having his back, and pumping him up. They just love the guy, and it's because he loves them back. He just had that knack, and he's a showman too. He has a flamboyant style that really appealed to people right from the start. And they loved him all the way through his entire career here in Pittsburgh.
Hey, Paul, we all have magical moments that we remember with great players. You were there to call the Mario Lemieux goal through Minnesota in the 1991 final, you and the great Mike Lang. My moment for Marc-Andre Fleury is a save against Nick Lidstrom in Game 7 in Detroit. I think, in my humble opinion, that's my Marc-Andre Fleury Pittsburgh Penguin moment. What's yours?
Well, With the Flower, I think it's a game I called. It was Game 7, the Penguins and Washington Capitals on the path to that first Stanley Cup for Fleury in 2009 on the first shift. Alex Ovechkin came down on a breakaway, and Fleury made a glove save on him. And it's really weird, Pierre. You know this, that a turning point can occur as early as the first shift of a hockey game, and that was a turning point. Like if Ovechkin scores there, I think the Capitals probably win Game 7 because they had won Game 6 in Pittsburgh. But Fleury makes the glove save. That set the tone for the whole game. The Penguins got the first goal. Craig Adams scored. Billy Guerin scored. Sidney Crosby scored. The Penguins just filled the net against the Capitals that night to win that series. And, Fleury was the guy who did it, because if he doesn't stop the greatest goal scorer of our generation, and consider that it was Fleury versus Ovechkin with Sid on the other side. I mean, the drama of it all was really something else.
It really was.
That's good. One thing that Fleury was known for, Paul, was his sense of humor, and he was quite the prankster. Still is, from what I see in Minnesota. I got my friend Jason Logan here in the comments section asking, did he ever prank you?
No, he never pranked me. He saved those moments for players, and he was hilarious. I do remember the one where he got inside of Colby Armstrong's equipment bag. He climbed inside of it, and then Army opened up the bag, and out popped Fleury like a jack-in-the-box. And it really scared the daylights out of Colby. He didn't know it was coming. I mean, but he was able to get himself into that hockey bag. It was so hilarious. But he also filled up a car full of packing peanuts, those little styrofoam things, all the way to the sunroof on somebody, and he stood on top of the car. They have video of it, of him filling it up, and just things like that. He was very creative, and he would sneak into the locker room before games and do these pranks on guys, and they'd get to the game, and right before they're getting ready to play the game, they would have something in their equipment or something.
Pierre,
you've been around so many phenomenal players in your career, Paul. You think about whether it's Mario in '84, Tommy and coming in from Buffalo. You think about Paul Coffey coming in from Edmonton, Larry Murphy, Joey Mullen, Kevin Stevens, Mark Recchi, Rick Tocchet, Jaromir Jagr, drafted 5th overall in 1990, Mr. Steigerwald. I remember we had a little discussion in Vancouver about that draft. So many great players, and obviously the lottery in '05, and you get Sid and Gino and Christopher Letang. Is there one?
I'm pinching myself.
I know. You had a chance to see all these guys. Like, you're the most valuable guy going.
No, I'm really lucky to. I'll never forget this. Bobby Smith came to town as a member of the Minnesota North Stars. He had just been drafted, and he was a highly touted prospect, and he was a good player right from day one. And I'm walking out of the building after the Minnesota North Stars beat the Penguins with Mike Lang. And we were mad because, the Penguins had always traded their first round picks. And now here was another team coming in early in the season with this guy, Bobby Smith, who's a great player. And we're losing every game, And Mike Lang says, I just want one player. Just give me one player. Just one player. He's saying this. We're walking out of the place.
Perfect.
Well, look what happened. Look at the players we got. I mean, like within 2 years, we had Mario Lemieux, and then that parade of players that Pierre just rattled off. So we went from, a wasteland to like this treasure trove of some of the greatest hockey players and luminaries in the game. I mean, we have all these Hall of Famers, Scotty Bowman, Badger Bob Johnson, Herb Brooks coached our team. Ivan Halenko was a legend over in his country. I mean, it's just ridiculous, really. We just became this incredibly fertile place for some of the greatest people in the history of the game.
Hey, Jimmy, before you go, Paul made such a good point there about Badger Bob, Scotty Bowman, Herb Brooks, Ivan Halenko. The guy, the architect, never gets enough credit is Craig Patrick, and Paul knows that that's right. I had the privilege of working for that gentleman, and every time I see him in a rink, I learn something new from Craig all the time.
No doubt. And, let's face it. I mean, he's the reason all those other guys got here. I mean, so it really started with him. And I remember the night the Penguins acquired him or, signed him after they fired Tony Esposito and Gino Briacco. And Craig walked onto the ice as the interim coach, and the fans gave him an ovation. Like they knew what they were getting. Like it was like, so that's what I mean about Penguins fans. They're smart. They knew right away that Craig Patrick was a special character in the Patrick name and all that. there was a feeling of instant legitimacy, right? When he walked onto the ice, and credibility. And boy, did he live up to it. I mean, we missed the playoffs that year because Uwe Krupp scored that goal in the last game. And Buffalo Sabres knocked us out, but we ended up with the 5th pick overall. And I'll never forget, I went downstairs for the post-game scrum, and Craig was upset. And he was sitting there, and he said, as long as I'm general manager, we'll never miss the playoffs again. And the thing is, that probably would have been true if not for the business of hockey becoming so sick where he had to like shit all of his players. I think if under normal circumstances, Craig probably wouldn't have missed the playoffs in his entire time as GM.
I agree.
Yeah, you brought up something there, Paul, just about the fan base and how smart they are and how much they love their hockey. What's the temperature like right now with the way this team has started off? I can't imagine good at all, but is there any sign of optimism in this fan base right now that they can pull out of this?
Well, I think the fans, because they are smart, I think they're going to have to come to grips with reality here. You know what I mean? It's not going to be easy. I mean, there's going to be some pain involved in it, and that's just the way it is. That's the nature of sports. It's the cyclical nature. It's what makes the high moments so special, is tough times. But I think there are still moments to be had. Like we just had the milestone night the other night with Malkin and Crosby both getting milestones on the same night, and the fans were phenomenal that night.
Yeah, that was.
I think there's a poignant moment about tonight's game beyond just Fleury being here. At the other end of the ice is another guy whose name means flower, Blomqvist, and he is going to be a really, really good goalie. Now, is he going to be a Hall of Famer like Marc-Andre Fleury? Who knows? But I can tell you this. The fans will take to him, and that will help. That will help matters because that'll be somebody who will, I think, create a little buzz, and the fans will come to see him play. Goalies have that special magnetism to them. And they did for me. I wanted to be a goalie when I was a kid. I used to sit behind the net and watch all the greats when I was a kid. I saw Doug Favell and Tony Esposito and Dennis DeJordy and Bruce Gamble and Eddie Johnston and Jerry Cheevers. All of them. I would sit behind the net and watch all of them, and I studied them. You know, I still do to this day. I think I know a little bit about goaltending just from osmosis from watching all these guys. But this kid Blomqvist, watch out for him, guys. He's going to be a great one. I really believe that.
Hey, don't forget Les Binkley, our buddy.
Oh, he's my favorite Penguin of all.
The Binkster. Don't forget the Binkster.
Yeah, he's my hero. You know, and I love Bink, and I didn't mention him because he was the Penguin goalie, but I'm thinking about all the other guys that I saw come through Pittsburgh, and I loved Bink. He was a master. You know, had a great glove. He was really good with his stick. Didn't even break into the NHL till he was 31, and you know, he was actually eligible for Rookie of the Year even back then because they didn't have the new rule in place where you had to be a certain age. But yeah, I loved Bink. I loved watching him, and he's a great guy too. A beautiful.
You know, it's a cool story on the Binkster, though. I got to tell you, Paul might not even know this. When Bink first started in the minors, in the lowest level of the minors, the backup goalie was also a trainer.
That's right.
So the Binkster was a trainer, and one time we were on this long road trip scouting, and I met Bink. I think might have met me in Calgary or Edmonton. I forget. Whenever I was with the team, we'd always go out scouting on the off nights to go watch junior players. So Bink happened to be out there. He scouted Ontario forever. And we were driving. He says, you know what the coolest part of my job was when I was a trainer? I go, no, what's that? He goes, I was a backup goalie. And if a guy got cut, I actually got paid like 5 cents a stitch. And so we'd always put an extra couple stitches in. So it would lead to a few more beers afterwards. I got paid by the stitch.
He has an unbelievable sense of humor. I would say, I say, you were a trainer, right, Bink? He'd say, yep, had the fastest scissors in the league. And then he said one time he got knocked silly on the ice, and he was laying down on the ice, and the trainer came out, and he was, you know, asking him questions. What's your name? You know, Les Bink. He said, who's the president of the United States? And Bink said, I don't know. I'm Canadian. I love that story. I love Bink. He's just a great man. I said, Bink, are you playing golf? He said, only every day.
You know, after the first cup in 91, Jimmy, they brought all the scouts in to celebrate. And I'll never forget the reaction of Bink, who would, you know, never had a chance to win it. Had won in the minors, but had never won in the NHL. And the emotion of the men that we had an older staff back then. Paul remembered, and it was really emotional, the first one. The 91 Cup was pretty special. And, well, then 92, everybody was a veteran. I mean, Paul was running around half naked with the cup in the backyard.
I had it. Greg Patrick let me have the cup the second year, that summer, and he let me have it. He had it in his office, sitting on a couch. And I said, "Boy, Craig, you think I could have the puck cup for a day?" He said, "Yeah, sure." So I took it, and I took it around town. We had a great time with it. I took it to my parents' house. I had pictures of my mother and dad with the cup, and my son when he was like 11. Yeah, we're just so blessed in Pittsburgh. And Pierre was a great addition to the Penguins. I'll never forget when Pierre first arrived, sitting in the stands. He was like, an encyclopedia of hockey, and he had this knack of being able to watch games and come back and give you scouting reports on players and how teams were playing. And that's what he was hired to do, basically. So during the playoffs, he scouted every series in advance, and they had an 8-point plan for how to beat a team. And Pierre would actually present that 8-point plan to the club. And the coaches really trusted his opinions on things, and they would actually execute some of the things he said. Like, I'll never forget Pierre saying, it's Dave Gagne. You got to watch him. He's really good once he gains the blue. You gotta watch him. And John Casey, the goalie, he chases a lot. He'll come out of the net and try to poke check. You think back to the moments of Mario with that awesome goal, the defining moment really in that series. John Casey totally came out against. He tried to come out and poke check him. He made him look silly. I mean, these are the kinds of things that you never forget. I never forget them. Pierre and I think, are similar in that respect. We have these things that are just kind of ingrained in our brains that never escape, and we're really lucky that way, I think, to have a good recall. So these great moments never leave us, because we remember all of them, and that's what Badger Bob said when we won the cup. You guys will appreciate it more 30 years from now than you do now. He wasn't wrong.
What Paul just said is spot on. I'll never forget Badger saying that too. I remember we were on the chart. Yeah. Paul was on it. We were chartering back from Minnesota after we won the first cup, and he was going up and down and telling all the guys, never forget this moment, because it'll mean more to you as you get older. And you never know if you'll get back there. Hey, Jaromir Jagr, his first 2 years in the league, he won the Stanley Cup. He never won it again.
Yeah, he only got back once to the final, right?
Yeah, he appreciates that. He appreciates it now. You talk about it. We had the pleasure of raising his banner last year. I was involved in that, and
you were phenomenal. By the way,
thank you. Awesome. Yags really warmed a lot of people's hearts on that visit to Pittsburgh. You found out what a deep soul he really is. He's not just some bimbo athlete. Like he's like an amazing person, like really highly intelligent. And
hey, Jimmy, so Paul knows, because he was there. You know how proud I am to go to the Mario Lemieux Fantasy Camp, and Paul plays a major role in that too. Yarmer was there, and Paul can tell you, Yarmer still has his hands. He still has his finishing ability. He still has his if he's maybe a step slow, obviously over 50 years of age, but everything else is NHL. I'm telling you.
He could play that. He could help our power play right now.
He could help the power play 100%. 100%. I totally agree, Paul.
Hey, listen, you guys, I got to run because I got to be at the rink, and I wanted to be on your sick podcast, Mark, for a while, so I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
I'd love to come on again sometime, and we have a little bit more time to talk about all this stuff. It's always fun.
Sounds great.
Don't worry, and I'm going to come see you soon in Pittsburgh, Paulie. You're the best. Steige, you are the best.
Great seeing you, Pete. Take care.
See you later. Hey, Mark,
I like your hat. I wear those hats all the time.
Cheers, my friend. Cheers. I'll be wearing it proud in Belfast soon. All right.
Jimmy, so many great nights on the road with that man. We have our friend Chuck.
I can tell.
We have all these. Paul's a hockey junkie. I'm not kidding you. Like, he watches every game, man. Mm-hmm. Every game. He's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, Steig, what are you doing? Like, he'll call me up in the middle of the night. I'm like, Steig, it's like 1 a.m. What are you doing? Like, what'd you think of that? Like, we didn't talk about it today, but I would have brought up to him if he had called me. I said, hey, did you watch the Utah game? Did you watch the Utah San Jose game?
He probably did.
He probably did. And I would have said, how the hell could they lose 3 faceoffs down the stretch like that, especially with Stenlund, who's so good. Stenlund's really good on faceoffs.
Yeah.
And they lose those 3 faceoffs, and most people are going to say it's a throwaway game at the end of October. For that team in Utah, that's not a throwaway game.
No, what was I just saying?
A long way.
That's huge. That's huge. I know another guy who calls people and texts people watching hockey a lot too, Pierre.
Me?
That's what I can see why you guys got along. So, but that was great. That was good stuff. And what he said about Yags too. I mean, there's some things like you're talking about memories that sort of stay in your mind. And I've told this on here before, I think, Pierre, and you know what he used to do after games when the lights were out and I went back out just to kind of look at the rink, after writing a story. And I walked out to the bench And there's Yags going back and forth, end to end on the ice with weights on his shoulders and his legs after he played a game, an overtime game too, against Pittsburgh in the playoffs in 2013. I was just like, wow, this guy's doing this at this age. It's amazing. And that's why he's still playing. That's why he's still playing.
Scotty and Bob, I used to skate with them after practice, just Yarmer and I working on different things. And I remember Badger once saying to me, get him off. Like, it's too much. And then the next year, Scotty would say, get him off. I'm going to play him more minutes. Stop it. Like, your career's over, Pierre. You don't need this.
Yeah.
He needs rest. You know?
He wouldn't, right? He wanted to be out there. It was.
You know how all the guys run the stadium stairs now and they do all this?
Yeah.
Yarmer Yager was the first guy I ever saw do that.
Mm-hmm.
And he would do it every game. Did not matter. Every game. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he was something.
He's a 5th pick overall. And I can tell you and I've told you this story. Owen Nolan went first. Peter Nedved went second. Keith Primo went third. Mike Ricci went fourth. All good players. All. But none of them close to Yarmer. Yes. And I'll never forget, we were at the Pan Pacific Hotel in Vancouver, and I had been very outspoken about Yarmer. And, everybody really liked Mike Ricci. Mike Ricci was a popular guy, but Greg Malone was a chief scout, and we had a real good scouting staff. And they were torn. And Scotty says, Pierre, you better be right. Like, if this guy's not the best player, you're going to be in big trouble. And I was like, oh, no, what did I do? Yeah.
You did all right, my friend.
No, you did okay, but I'm telling you, you talk about like the draft that year was at the football stadium in Vancouver, and there were like 50,000 people there to start. We were all on the floor, and I just remember Scotty looking at me. You better be right. You better be right. We'll be right. We'll be right. I'm like,
were you planning an escape route if you weren't?
Well, I would have had to work. I probably would have been fired after the first year.
No, you would have been
think
fine.
about it. No,
you did great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
that's the way the business goes.
In that draft, I can tell you one thing. We got a player, I think it was in the 7th round, Ian Moran from Belmont Hill School.
I know Mo very well.
He played 11 years in the NHL. 11 years.
Yeah.
That was, of all the players we drafted that year, that's the one that I said to Scotty, I said, that guy's going to play. And he's like, Pierre, I don't know. I'm worried about his size. I said, no, he's going to play. He's going to play a lot. Mm-hmm. And he did. And he was really a really good player for us.
And you know what he became, Pierre? And I'm lucky I got to know Ian as well. He was a great glue guy in the locker room. You know what I mean? Like, he defined that term. And that was his value, I think, to so many teams that he was on.
Eye test player. Total eye test player. 100% eye test player.
Bingo. Yep. Belmont Hill and Boston College. Yep. I remember Ian very well. We got to get him on soon. He's coaching.
He works with Matt Cater. He and Matt Cater work.
Yeah. And he's coaching Junior Eagles now, right?
He is.
Yeah. Yep. I see some of his Instagram posts. All right. Well, listen, we got a lot of questions lined up. That was great. That was fun. Looks like a lot of people enjoyed that interview. We did too. But before we get to that, I want to talk, Pierre, about a place where there's a lot of these hats. And that's Ireland. And we're going to have to find me a new one over there because this one's falling apart, I think. But I'm looking forward to going over to Dublin and then Belfast for the Friendship 4 at the end of November. I was talking to Sarah Stanton today. She's all excited. She's looking, if anyone's out there is going to be in Belfast, she's looking for an MC for the BU Thanksgiving party they're having. But you and I will be at a nice dinner that night, right, Pierre?
We will be. Yeah, we will be. We're very.
Want to tell everybody we're going to be?
We're blessed. No, I'm going to we'll let it play out. You don't give all the stuff.
But yeah, looking forward to that. It's going to be great over there. And I was texting with Greg Brown. He's going to come on campus soon. Probably going to get him also in person when we're broadcasting live from the Hart Bar in downtown Belfast.
Yep.
So looking forward to that. We do, however, in terms of college hockey, we've got a great guest coming up this week. Ben Barr, the head coach of UMaine, will be joining us for On Campus this Friday. So definitely tune into that. But Pierre, let's talk about our sponsor, Betway. And I did not get he had 2 points.
He had 2 assists. Yeah. And he played well. He played well last night. He was good.
Yeah, he did. He played great.
Well.
That was an interesting game, Pierre.
They just start from behind too often. I think it's 3 games in a row. They've been down 2-0. They can't be doing that.
That's their Achilles heel right now for sure. I was just going to say that.
I would agree.
but they're finding their way. Get a lot of new guys getting the chemistry. But you want to go over to Betway right now to bet some of the games we got tonight. Betway is the leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. You can go right there to that QR code if you are watching here on YouTube with us, and you can go there, sign up via that, or you can go to the website. And remember, you must be 18 plus and always bet responsibly. A lot of games. Pierre, there was a lot of Monday games last night. I was thinking about that as I was watching.
There were a lot of Monday games.
You don't usually see that
tonight too. There are a fair number of games tonight too. I think part of it is, Jimmy, you got this thing in February, with a Four Nation event.
Okay, good point.
A lot of time, so they're trying to jam games in. And don't forget, after the game last night, Florida Panthers left to go over to Finland. They're in Helsinki right now. Dallas is already over there. They'll be playing 2 games in Tampere, which is not far from Helsinki, but they're going to be there. So that's another thing that eats into it. And we already had 2 teams that were over there in Buffalo and New Jersey. So the NHL is kind of going the way of the NFL too when it comes to trying to grow the brand a little bit. But, there's a lot of there's some important games tonight. The mini Pitt game
there is. I mean, I'm looking
important for Pitt. The Ranger-Washington game is really important for Washington. Seattle at Montreal for Seattle to get going here and for Montreal to keep the momentum going. And are you going to the game, Philly-Boston?
I won't be there tonight, no. But I'll be watching.
Watch it.
Yeah.
But that's a big game for Philly because they're starting to run out of early season racetrack, Jimmy. They are.
Yeah, I'm looking at that game right now, and this isn't my pick, so don't go there. But I'm just saying, if people out there thinking of betting the Bruins right now, looking at it like they're going to roll Philly, they're going to roll White, not so fast, my friend. Pierre just nailed it there. This is a desperate Philly team that's going to be coming in here. This is also a Bruins team. You hope not, but potentially could have their heads blown up a little, feeling good about themselves after beating the Leafs. So this is. I said it to Pierre the other day after, I think it was Sunday, Pierre, when I was talking to you driving. And I said, this game could be even tougher than the Toronto game because you don't want to look ahead. And you just beat Toronto and you're feeling great about yourself and you think you're out of the woods. They're not out of the woods. They need to go on a roll now, too. So they need to keep doing what they did against Toronto. And that, to me, Pierre, I thought the biggest thing for the Bruins in that game was just their puck pursuit, their intensity, and their attack. They had not been doing that all season. I didn't see it. And there was just a lot of energy. They were suffocating the Leafs wherever they went around the ice. And, I know the Leafs got back in it and forced overtime there, so good on them. But that was a key for them. They're going to need to do that to a hungry Philly team tonight. But I am going to go to the game we were just discussing. All right, so let's cue it up here. Here's Murph's Betway Sick Pick of the Day.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, so I'm looking at that Minnesota-Pittsburgh game, and as our good friend Paul just pointed out there, we've seen a lot of good things from the young man Blomqvist between the pipes for Pittsburgh, and also you got Fleury coming in there. It's his last game in Pittsburgh. He's going to want to put on a show. He's going to want to perform well there. I'm loving the under, Pierre. I'm loving the total under 6.5. So go over to Betway right now. You click on game lines and you can move the total goals in the game. You move it up to 6.5. Go with the under. That is my Betway sick pick of the night. All right, let's go to the Q&A. What do we got? Alex Evanowski, thoughts on Fantilli's play so far? Boy, does he look good. Alex, you're dead on. And man, I think they caught someone sleeping last night, huh?
Edmonton won in overtime the night before, obviously in Detroit.
And then they lose McDavid early. I get it.
Yeah, and they lose McDavid in like the first 30 seconds or whatever. But here's what I'd say. Fantilli's a real deal. He's good. Sillinger's starting to come along, which is really good news for them. Chinakhov is starting to really come along. Werenski looks really comfortable. And they had some good fortune last night. Sean Monahan's been great too. He's playing emotionally because of his buddy Johnny Gaudreau, and I get that and I respect it so much. So there's a lot of good stuff going on there. One of the best things about last night, John Davidson in the broadcast booth last night.
What a good story he told about his grandkid, eh?
The game last night.
Yeah. Did you see the story he told about his grandkid too? with Gaudreau. He was wearing his number as a tribute to Gaudreau. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So I'm happy to hear JD and in there with Stevie Mears. That was good. But hey, look, Columbus is doing some good things. Good for them on home ice early this season. I think that's really good. Really
and
good.
I agree. Fantilli is a stud. All right, next question. Marvin Matthews. What's up, Marvin? Hey, Marvin, belated happy birthday. I forgot to wish you that last week. I know it's very early in his career, Pierre, but what do you see as Shane Wright's ceiling point-wise?
Good question. I think anything over 60 would be good for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see him being a pure point getter. One thing I do know is they're giving him every opportunity, especially when they pull the goalie, to have him out there for face-off situations. So there could be some points in there for him. I'm looking forward to watching him tonight because he's going to be playing with a lot of emotion, I would think, Jimmy, and we'll see. But I think anything over 60, if he can be over 60, I think that'd be obviously great for him. Maybe he goes higher than that, but I'd say at this point that'd be probably a good marker.
All right, next question. Pizza 603. What's up, buddy? Hi, gents. Jake Evans is a free agent. PK stud. What's he worth on the open market in his contract, money and term?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd have to do some research on that with comparables with other players that are playing that role. There's not a lot. If you look at it, I think he's the highest ice time penalty killer in the league right now for forwards. So I'd have to do some research on that to give you an honest answer. And I wouldn't want to shortchange the kid because he's doing some good things. But there is a value for that. There is a value. There's no question there's a market value for that. I just have to, like I said, I've got to do some research to give you the appropriate answer.
And by the way, Pierre, I'm not just doing this because you're my friend and my co-host here, but credit to you. You kept saying, don't doubt this kid. He's going to be good on Jake Evans. I hear you all the time in Montreal. Everybody's like, get rid of him, get rid of him. And like, no. He has value in this lineup, and now it's starting to show. So, it's already showed.
You're nice, Jimmy, to say that. But, again, it comes down to how many viewings I had of the player when he was at Notre Dame. I watched him so much, and I used to send Melnick scouting reports. I'm telling you, this guy's going to play in the NHL. Now, he's not going to play the first or second line center, and I don't even know if he'll be a 3, but he's going to play in the league, and you could see it. And you know what? I want to give Notre Dame – we're going to see them over in Belfast and in Dublin. I want to give Jeff Jackson and his staff there, Graham Slaggert and Paul Pooley, those guys, they did a good job coaching him up because he's really a very, very responsible defensive player. He really is.
Well, that if I'm not mistaken, Pierre, I mean, from what I hear and read all the time, that's kind of Jackson's trademark, defensive hockey, responsible hockey.
Yeah, when you get a player out of Notre Dame, more times than not, you don't have to teach him much about how to play defense. What you need to do is work with it, in terms of manufacturing offense. But the defensive side of it, they got it. Any player coming out of there, they got it nailed. They really do. Yeah.
All right, next question. Real Deal Prime, what's up?
Good question. To see this guy back.
I know. Given the competition level and various difficulties in today's NHL, have we seen the last of dynasty teams? And what's the definition of a dynasty? That's a great question.
I think modern day salary cap dynasty, Chicago Blackhawks would be one. I think Pittsburgh Penguins would be one.
16, 17, yeah.
Yeah, not only
the
that,
Kings.
look at 08 and 09. 08, Pittsburgh had 4 runs to the cup. 08, 09, 16, 17.
Years. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Chicago 3 from 10 to 15. They won 3. Chicago won 2. LA won 2. So that's how I would look at Tampa. 3 straight, 3 in a row, straight trips to the final. That's got to be a dynasty. So, and 2 cup wins. So I would say that. I would use that as I think anytime you're 3 or above, I think that is good.
Do you count trips to the final? Or does it have to be at least 2 wins in there?
No, I count trips to the final. I mean,
so would Boston get in there for their run with Bergeron and Krejci?
Why not? So Boston wins in 11, 13, they go to the final, and then 19, they go to the final. Why not?
Yep. All right.
All those guys. I totally Boston's done a good job. Like, people don't realize how competitive Boston's been for a long time. They've been really good.
Basically since 07, 08.
Hey, if you go, but here's what I'll say to a Bruins fan. You go look at your teams from 88 to 92, okay? Very competitive teams. Amazingly competitive teams. lost in the final in 90, lost in the Eastern Final in 91, lost in the Eastern Final in 92.
Lost in the final 88.
88. So I'm just saying. So you go look at all those teams, okay, that the Bruins had, and then they paid a price, and they became bad for a while.
Oh, yeah.
They became bad for a while. But they were like a dynasty team. Look at the Islanders. Look at Edmonton. All those teams in the 80s.
Detroit.
Yeah, they all had. Detroit lost forever and ever and ever. You know, and then in 95 they get to the final, and then they don't win, but they win 97, 98, 2002. And I'm telling you, had they been in the East, might have been easier because they had to go through Dallas and they had to go through Colorado. People don't realize from 96 to 2003. Try getting out of that division. Colorado, Dallas, and Detroit. Try getting out of that.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Good question. All right, next question. Postnet on 130. Question, do you have any stories of retired NHL players playing in men's league or beer league?
I do not. I apologize. I do not.
Get back to me on that because I saw your question there in the comment section before Shane put it up there, and it's I know one. I'm going to think of it. So get back to me because I know there's been one around here in the New England area. I want to say it might be Kenny Linsman, but I'm going to double check on that.
Yeah, so, I don't. I have no good stories on that.
I saw Fleury the other day. Yesterday, they got to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he went and took some shots with some young kids.
With a bunch of kids. God bless him. All right, next question. Jason Logan, what's up, Jay? With Nashville starting off slow, do you think that they have too many big names and are trying too much? That's a good question. I mean, sometimes you get too many stars, and it kind of shifts the balance of the team. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I think right now it's a chemistry thing. Yeah. I just think they're getting used to each other.
No, I think their defense isn't good enough. I really do. I said this to you last week. I don't think their defense is good enough. That's if they had to do something as a group, they're going to have to make that better. And Roman Josi is one of my favorite people and one of my favorite players in the league, and he got lit up like a Roman candle last night. He got walked twice. Once was for the first goal of the game by Braden Point, and once was for the winning goal in overtime. So Roman's trying to do too much because he knows what I know is they're just not. They're not
going to say that. I was just literally going to say that. All right, it looks like that's it for questions here today. Great guest. What a good time that was. We could have gone forever, awesome. Huh? Steigs was great. What a great guest. Paul Steigerwald joining us here to talk some Penguins and Marc-Andre Fleury swan song in Pittsburgh tonight. Don't forget to watch that game, the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Thanks to Shane working the board up in Montreal. Thanks to you, Pierre. Pierre, anything big tonight other than hockey going on for you?
Yeah, do the Montreal Canadiens post-game show on the Montreal Canadiens radio channel. So, yeah.
Okay, on TSN 690. You can find Pierre there.
I'm watching a lot of games and watching that game in particular with Seattle, so I have a pretty good report on Shane Wright for tomorrow, and maybe Montreal can keep the magic going for another game before they head out on the road for two in Washington and Pittsburgh later in the week.
So you've got that tonight. You got Habs, Caps post-game Thursday, right?
Thursday, and then AHL on Friday and AHL Saturday afternoon. And then Canadiens post-game Saturday night.
Yeah, you're not busy at all.
I love this, Jimmy.
I know you love it.
I love it. It's the eye test. It's awesome. This is the best hour of my day, man. Outside of when I'm in the gym working out, this is the best part of my day.
The feeling is mutual, Pierre. The feeling is mutual. This, I can tell you, and I'll tell our listeners, it got me through some tough times this past summer, so I appreciate it. All right, this has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.